call the August 7 work session meeting of the Portsmouth City Council to order. And Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Yes. Mr. Cherry?
Here.
Mr. Clark?
Here.
Mrs. Lucas Burke? Mr. Moody?
Here.
Ms. Simmons?
Here.
Dr. Whitaker? Mayor Rowe?
Here. Dr. Patton.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of City Council. Our first presentation this evening is in keeping with City Council's timeline for the development and implementation of the 2018 state and federal legislative package. This evening, Mrs. Sherry Neal, Intergovernmental Affairs Manager, will present the proposed legislative initiatives submitted by members of City Council, city departments, and citizens. Please note the initiatives are proposed and up for discussion and collective determination by you, the members of City Council, thereby City Council deciding which items will move forward to the next phase for staff research, evaluation, and legislative feasibility. During the August 21st public work session, Mrs. Neal will return and present the staff work on the selected initiatives, and members of City Council, you will have the opportunity to finalize your 2008 state federal legislative selections, prioritizing the top 3 to 5 2018 legislative initiatives. The second presentation is the Strategic Fiber Master Plan, presented by Mr. Daniel Jones, Chief Information Officer. This presentation will provide a high-level overview of the importance of the city's framework for all municipal fiber technology infrastructure deployments and regional connectivity as we begin to now in preparing for the future. The third presentation is an overview of Portsmouth Police Department and highlights from the 2016 annual report by Chief Tanya D. Chapman. The Portsmouth Police Department is dedicated to the protection, security, and well-being of all people. The department is strategically focused in the continuing to develop broad collaborative partnerships that enhance the protection, security, and well-being of all people. And lastly, tonight, we will have an overview and the guidelines for the Neighborhood Incentive Matching Grants Program that was approved in the FY 2018 budget. The new grant program is strategically linked to the City Council's 4 big things, particularly number 4, initiatives to support image enhancement. The presenter is Mr. Doug Weller, grants officers. Before we begin, Mayor, I'd like for you to know, and it's you and Council's determination, that Mrs. Neal's presentation is very detailed and it encompasses a lot of information. So it would be apropos if, as she's presenting, you all want to discuss it instead of her going through all of the information and then coming back and starting from the beginning again, because there will be decisions you all will have to make.
Good.
Thank you.
All
Ms.
right.
Neal.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Patton. Good evening, Mayor Rowe, Vice Mayor Cherry, members of City Council. In keeping with our timeline for development of our state and federal legislative initiatives, tonight I'm presenting for your consideration, deliberation initiatives which were submitted by our City Council members, city staff, and Portsmouth citizens. Okay, thank you. My presentation will proceed in this fashion. Quick review of our timeline, and then the suggestions submitted by council, staff, and citizens, and then next steps. I will first provide a quick review of where we are on our timeline and the remaining steps in the process. Tonight, you're receiving the submitted proposed initiatives. Collectively, council will determine, as Dr. Patton said, which initiatives to explore further. The initiatives selected will be researched further with results and staff recommendations provided to council at your August 21st meeting of your public work session. At that time, council will make your final determinations, ranking them in order of importance. And finally, in any of the if there are any suggested city charter changes, staff will begin the preparations for the public hearing. So this is where we are in August. In September, if we need a public hearing for a charter change, we will have the public hearing then. I'll come before you again in September with the approved draft, state and federal initiatives for council's final approval. In October, we'll have our annual City Council General Assembly Delegation Legislative Meeting to discuss the city's legislative initiatives and receive input from our delegation members on our initiatives as well as intel from them as to the hot-button issues on the horizon for the 2018 General Assembly session. Following the General election in November, pre-filing of legislative requests for the upcoming General Assembly session, which will begin on the 20th of November and it ends on the 4th of December. So we have a very short turnaround time this year to have our legislation put into the hopper. I'll now review with you initiatives submitted by our City Council members. There were several charter change initiatives submitted. The first one requests changes to the city's recall process. Language would be added to the city's charter, which would include these sections of the Code of Virginia. The next request for a charter change would also include revisions to the city's ordinance, sections 12-176, regarding disparity in procurements, as well as discrimination in hiring, promoting, and tenure of members within the city's police and fire departments. The third charter change initiative submitted requests adding language to our charter, limiting the types of weapons that could be sold or possessed within the city of Portsmouth. The second bullet on this slide is an initiative for either legislative change, allowing Portsmouth to limit interest rates and fees charged by payday lenders, or for this authority to be granted to the city of Portsmouth by the Virginia General Assembly through our charter. The next item on this slide is a legislative initiative that would set a gas tax floor for the Hampton Roads, Northern Virginia areas. This is an initiative that was carried by Senator Wagner in 2017, which we supported along with our sister cities in the region, the HRPDC, and various factions in Northern Virginia. This is a matter that will be reintroduced in 2018 and most likely by Senator Wagner again. The final item on this slide refers to a bill that was introduced and failed to pass in the 2017 General Assembly session. And the last time I came before you, it was council's directive to me that if this was resubmitted, that we should oppose it. I will next review with you the submissions from the Portsmouth City staff. Working in conjunction with the relevant department heads, our city manager and city attorney, the following items are presented for your consideration. The first initiative here is in reference to legislation that passed this year in the 2017 session that provides funding for historical African American cemeteries and graves. The legislation provides $5 or the average actual cost of routine maintenance multiplied by the number of graves, monuments, and markers to qualifying charitable organizations that preserve historical African American cemeteries established before 1900 for African Americans who lived at any time between 1800 and 1900 and are interred in that cemetery. The legislation was approved for the East End Cemetery in Henrico County and the Evergreen Cemetery in Richmond for a total of about 6,975 grave sites. It is estimated in Portsmouth that we may have between 200 and 300 such grave sites that could qualify. Therefore, we're suggesting legislation to amend this section of the code to include the city of Portsmouth. The next item, or the next initiative, is to revise the funding stream for our legislation that we introduced, and it failed to pass through the 2017 legislative process, and that was the Economic Development Incentive and Host Cities Transportation Support Funds. Staff has been working with our host city counterparts of the Virginia Port Authority on this matter in an effort to identify the best way to move forward with either this measure and or to identify other measures that we could collaborate on regarding fiscal assistance to the port's fiscally stressed host cities. The last item on this slide refers to the state communications and sales tax. Currently, the state does not allow taxing of a number of technologies that have emerged over the last several years. Consequently, local governments have lost out on thousands of tax dollars they would have otherwise been privy to, such as for streaming services, postpaid telephones, and phone cards. The Virginia Municipal League's Finance Policy Committee is recommending to their legislative committee that the state amend this section of the state code allowing for taxation of these services, as well as increasing the sales tax from the current 5% tax rate.
Ms. Neal, a question. The House Bill 1547, who came up with the formula for calculating the amount that the state is to grant? Is that within the bill, or is that something?
That's within the bill.
Is
So it
there,
would be the patron, I would suppose. It would be probably the patron or legislative services, I'm not sure.
is it possible to get what our local cost is to see if that's a reasonable figure that bill is suggesting be funded to our locality?
Mayor Rowe, Councilman Whitaker, yes, we are looking at that.
So,
I've been working with our Mr. Furlow, our Director of Parks and Recreation, on this particular matter to try to get the numbers and see exactly how many do we have. So it's $5 or what it costs to maintain. So that's,
so
Either or.
is it,
Either or.
when it says either or, is it the lesser of or either or?
it doesn't say, it just says either $5 or what it costs to maintain. So the
Oh.
way we're reading it, we're assuming that the $5 would be the lesser of the two.
Right, I just want to make, the bill doesn't say the lesser of the two.
No, it doesn't state that at all, no, sir.
And it's actually law now, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
it
So
came
it's
on
not-
July 1st.
It's amending the state code,
Right.
but adding to what was passed in the last session, the city of Portsmouth.
Yes, that's what we
Okay.
requested.
Right, well, the issue I'm raising, I know you're amending it to add Portsmouth, but is there going to be any, well, you said the language is already there. It's either or. Okay, I'm fine, yeah.
We're good? Okay. Oops, I turned it off, I'm sorry. Did I turn it back on that? Sorry. I'm sorry.
May not have been used.
Just a pause.
Let her change it.
There it is.
Okay. Next, we have a list of state policy initiatives. This list is not exclusive. There will be many other issues that we'll need to address during the upcoming legislative session.
You want to advance, I think.
Did I go? Yeah, sorry, thank you, Mayor. Again, this is not an exclusive list, and we will be addressing other issues as they come along during the upcoming legislative session. However, and these are positions that staff recommends that council take on these particular positions. There's one on this slide, bullet number 3, that we've not discussed and council hasn't taken a formal position on as of yet. The Virginia Municipal League and the Virginia Association of Counties are currently surveying their members regarding this matter. For a little background, historical information, following Norfolk sheriffs bringing this issue forward in 2016 regarding the overcrowding of his jail and backup in the court system for low-level marijuana arrests, Mayor Alexander of Norfolk invited Senator Tommy Norman to Norfolk's 2016 legislative dinner to discuss the matter. Senator Norman, who is also a lawyer, has become sensitized to the matter by a number of his clients. He took the matter to the General Assembly during the 2017 session and had the Virginia Crime Commission conduct a study on the matter for recommendations for the upcoming General Assembly session. The Crime Commission is currently seeking public comment on this matter. The public comment period ends on the 25th of this month. Just for clarification, the differentiation in the terms means the criminalization would be placing parameters around the use and the possession of small amounts of marijuana. Violations of the rules would result in a fine but no criminal record. Legalization would be placing some sort of parameters around the use and possession amounts of marijuana, and violations there could result in either fines or criminal offense.
Is the study committee on track to complete their study but prior to 2018?
Yes, they're supposed to report in October.
Really?
So are you asking for direction from council on?
Yes.
We will.
Well, I would support what is presently the decriminalization that the senator has presented.
We
Anybody else?
decided on all of this right now tonight?
No, we don't. I think, in fairness to us all, we need to digest what's here and what we're hearing, and to digest the comments that are being made. I think we also, on that issue, probably ought to hear from the city manager and a report from the police chief,
Okay.
how it may impact
Right.
us.
Yeah,
Right.
no,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's one of those, I think I know what I want, but I don't know
Yeah.
what the professionals will say.
Also,
And that's, excuse me, I was going to say, I've never really put in my mind the decriminalization. I've always thought about the legalization, so I'd like to read the distinction between the two. Yes, sir.
Also, I think it'd be good to hear from the school system, just to hear what has been the disciplinary track with marijuana issues.
That's a good point. Dr. Patton, you
I
got
have that.
Okay.
Anything else on that one? No? Okay, moving forward. Last but not least, we've received a number of submissions from our citizens. In requesting submissions from the public for our state and federal packages, we were also sent issues that only pertain to local government. So listed on this slide are the local government items that were submitted, and I'm representative showing them for your information purposes only. These are not items for consideration for our state or our local, our federal package.
This page has nothing to do with the 2018 General Assembly.
It has nothing to do with the federal or the state, no. Moving forward, continuing on with our citizens' suggestions, we have two that require amending the Virginia Constitution, one providing school board taxing authority, and the other one to abolish forfeiture of voting rights of convicted felons. The next initiative is for legislation to protect all war memorials in Virginia. Am I on the right one? Yeah, okay. The fourth bullet is a request for legislation mandating that all tunnels be kept open on holidays. The fifth initiative is a request for legislation to normalize the boat personal property taxes in Virginia, similar to what was recently done in Maine. And the last two bullets request legislative changes to the Hampton Roads Transportation Accountability Commission. One for the use of the funds that HR TAC has in their possession to buy out the Elizabeth River Crossings contract. And the other is to allow the citizens of the respective localities embraced by HR TAC to elect the governing board. Our citizens also suggested some changes to the city's charter to include size and election processes for the city council and school board, as outlined here. And these suggestions included detailed directions as to how to reorganize the city into a borough system and who and how persons would run for these seats. Also, the mayor and the school board chair would no longer be elected positions, but instead decided by the members of City Council and School Board. The last suggestion listed here, the last bullet, is for changes to the charter regarding our recall process, as listed on this slide.
Mayor, would you like us to make a list of these things and come back with a yes, no,
I think that would be good.
maybe, or email to the
Yeah.
manager or something? There's a lot of stuff here.
It really is, and it's going to take some time to digest.
Then you all to do.
Yeah.
And it's stuff on like firearms, we
No, we can't.
can't do that.
No.
I'm not gonna do that.
No,
It's against the state law.
right, can't do that.
Why don't we, that's not a bad idea. Why don't we use the city manager as the clearinghouse for our comments?
All right.
And if everybody would send their comments or questions to the city manager. And then, in turn, you would make sure that all of council gets everybody's
Get a
comments.
formal report, and each of you have the document in the box, am I correct? And from there, you could, go
Yeah.
through and make your determinations based on the layout of the PowerPoint.
Everybody okay with that?
Well, can the document be sent in a form that we can add comments to it? 'Cause
We
I think in the
could
presence-
revamp it quickly,
Yeah.
so that there will be, okay. We
So
could do
it's
that.
If you
editable.
took it and put it in a Word document and
We can do
emailed it
that.
to us, we could reply and hit yes,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, I think
Maybe.
that would work good, because that way it would look the same, to see everybody's comments in the same fashion.
We'll revamp it and should have it ready for you by tomorrow.
Okay,
Okay.
is that good? All right. Well, do you have another page?
Almost done, yes, sir.
He's almost done.
The last initiative submitted by our citizens is for our federal package. This suggestion is for legislation to change how federal flood insurance is purchased. The suggested change would allow purchasing this insurance with monthly installment payments rather than the current method of full payment due at time of purchase. It is suggested that if this change were possible and made, more persons would be able to provide full flood insurance for their properties. And we have one more slide here after this one. The following federal policy positions are suggested to the City Council by city staff. And with Congress currently being in a fluid state of flux, the following items are ones we are monitoring and weighing in on as needed. So listed here are items that staff recommends we continue supporting for current funding levels or increasing funding for these measures. We are not advocating for cuts or dismantling any of these programs. And as the federal legislative session process moves forward, we will continue to monitor and weigh in on other local government issues as they arise. And that's the end of my presentation.
All right, well,
Let's see. The last slide, the preservation support, that, is that open to add additional items to?
Yeah, this is in no way exclusive.
Okay.
Yes, definitely. If you have more things that you want to put out there, we can definitely look at those as
and
well.
when this comes to us in Word document, when you make your edit, put parenthetically your name so we can track it.
Okay, we'll have somewhere where they could put
I
their
mean,
name.
it's going to be obvious, but let's make it redundant. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Dr.
Get-
Penn.
I was going to tell Ms. Neal to get with Mrs. Oglesby. She's starting the process right now for the
Okay.
Word document.
All right,
Okay.
thank you. Good night.
Okay, strategic fiber master plan.
Yes,
Dr.
Mr.
Penn?
Jones.
Yeah, T-guy goes up with iPad. That's a good sign.
Mr. Smith, before he starts, this document isn't loading, the fiber
Yeah,
master
that was
plan.
not,
No.
How big is it? It's not that big. It's not large.
Skip and then come back.
Yeah, let's do. Can you see if you can fix it?
It's only
Well-
8 frames.
Well, why don't we do this? he'll do a patch for us, and we'll go to item
Very good.
3.
All right. Chief?
I have extra copies if you want to look from the
Oh,
handout.
Can you do the
That'll save you
patch?
some time.
Can you get it up, Mr. Jones?
We can upload it. Whichever one you would prefer.
Yeah, let's go to 3.
Okay.
And that will give him the chance to do that.
Okay.
Can you give me
Chief will come forward with the 2016 annual report and 2017 department overview. Chief Chapman.
Good evening, Mayor Rowe, Vice Mayor Terry, members of council, Dr. Patton, Mr. Ashby. Good evening. It is my pleasure to present to you the Police Department's 2016-2017 department overview, as well as some highlights from our 2016 annual report, which I believe you all received a copy already of the report. Okay, so before we move on to the next slide, I just want to bring your attention to our new design on our police vehicles, and I wanted to thank you all for the funding that we received in order to be able to enhance our fleet vehicles. As a result of budget constraints in the past, many of our vehicles were in poor condition and had many hours being spent in the repair shops, and the average model of the vehicles were 2010 with an average of 70,000 plus miles on them, so we thank you. Over the last 2 budget cycles, we were able to retire 29 old vehicles in FY17 and purchase 27 new ones, as well as in FY18 we were able to purchase actually 29 vehicles in 2017 and 27 in 2018, along with a new horse trailer, a command vehicle, and a tactical vehicle. It's all being purchased, so we thank you for that. So moving on. Next. Okay. The mission of the Portsmouth Police Department is dedicated to the protection and security of all people and in partnership with the community to providing quality public safety services while affording dignity and respect to every individual. And our vision is the police and citizens together building a safer community. So these principles have been, we have been trying to inculcate in all members of our police department as well as the community, and enhancing community partnerships and building trust will be the keys to our success. So just an overview of our authorized complement. First of all, last year we answered 291,618 calls for service in 2016. Our current authorized strength is 266 warrant officers, 102 civilians, which includes 33 dispatchers in our 911 center. We also currently have 13 auxiliary police officers and 3 additional auxiliary officers in academy right now. We have 6 chaplains and 15 safety town volunteers. So during 2016, our volunteers, excluding our auxiliary officers, from January to June of this year through June 5th, they tallied more than 5,069 hours of volunteer time. And our auxiliary officers during the year of 2016 totaled 5,710 hours of volunteer time, so saving the city a whole lot of money. So we are very appreciative of our volunteers. So just an overview of the department. We actually have 4 bureaus. The Patrol Operations Bureau, which includes Uniform Patrol, our Community Enhancement Division, which includes the Community Enhancement Officers, our Homeless Outreach Team, our School Resource Officers, and our Crime Prevention. Also under Patrol is our new Street Crimes Division. We have our Criminal Investigations Bureau, which also includes the Criminal Investigations Division, and Major Crimes, General Assignment, and you can see everything that falls under there. After that, there's our Special Operations Division, which also has a bureau and a division, and our Traffic Unit, our Special Events, Homeland Security, SWAT, Marine Patrol, Mounted K-9, Animal Control, and under that division bureau is also a special investigations division, which is our gang suppression, narcotics, DEA, HIDA. It's important to note that not only do we work here in the city, we're also on several task force, like our ATF, DEA, and HIDA, which brings in lots of funding from seized assets, working on multi-jurisdictional cases, and anything that stems out of Portsmouth will get the bulk share of the funding that's being seized. But our fugitive apprehension unit, they work with the Marshal Services, basically nationwide resource. If there's someone that is wanted nationwide and they're believed to be here in Portsmouth or in the surrounding area, our fugitive unit works with within Portsmouth and around the area. And they'll travel to like different cities to pick up our individuals, or different states to pick up our individuals as well. And then we have our Planning and Administration Bureau, and you can see everything that entails. And then the Professional Standards Bureau, or Internal Affairs, falls under my office. So building trust and legitimacy, that is what we have been strategically working on over the past year and 5 months since I've been here. So as you can see, I've met with several federal, state, and city officials. We host a monthly Chiefs Forum with the community. We initiated a Community Awareness Reduction and Engagement Program. We call it CARE, and that's just the overarching title for all of our initiatives that we've been working on to try and build that trust in the community, and I'll talk more about it shortly. Once again, we hold our monthly community engagement opportunity walks. We call it the CEO Walk, where Dr. Patton, members of the department heads, as well as our faith leaders, will go out into the community, touch base with the community, get their concerns, issues, and it's important to note that the department heads or their representatives attend, because most of the issues are not police related. And so we gather, Ms. Hogue, our city ombudsman, gathers all the information and sends it out to the respective department heads for us to give feedback by the end of the month, within 30 days, for us to say what we did to take care of the problem. So it's been an overwhelming success with the citizens. They enjoy having face-to-face contact with us and trying to get their issues resolved. Last year, we held a police and community trust building event. We partnered with the Department of Justice. I sought out their assistance. There was no reason for them to come in. So I asked them, they have a community outreach specialist, to see how we could try and break down some of the barriers. So we had about 80 citizens, from our youth to our seniors to different organizational groups. We all spent the entire Saturday, one day together, breaking up into focus groups, trying to discuss what the challenges and barriers were between the police and the citizens, and then trying to work together and trying to overcome some of those challenges. I established a Chiefs Advisory Group. This group is mainly advisory. We've only met one time. They'll look at a policy, give input. The policy we looked at the time was our pursuit policy. And what I did was compare our policy to the surrounding jurisdictions, and to get their feedback on what they thought from a citizen standpoint on whether ours was too strict, too lenient, what the outcome was. And so, to my surprise, they thought we were fair. We were in the middle between the 7 cities, so they thought we should leave it the same. We still made some tweaks to it. So that's the type of citizen engagement we've been working on. And I also started a peer leaders group within the department to try and have the peers talk to one another and bring me information on what their concerns were, and once again trying to bring forth answers, bring forth solutions, and deal with some of the morale issues or whatever's going on in the department. Next is our violence reduction strategies. We divided the department the city up into 3 geographical policing areas, and I'll show you a map on it and talk a little bit more about it. But that went into effect, a slow effect last June, and and I'll show you the results of some of that. We also started a street crimes unit, violent crimes task force we had. I have my gang and narcotics unit responding to homicides for a coordinated response, because most of our homicides are either gang or drug related. So to have that nexus there and the resources, I believe has really helped us try and solve some of our crimes in an expeditious manner. We are working with Dr. Patton and the city on the Violence and Crime Reversal Partnership with ODU. We have a program we're looking at. It's an Alternatives to Incarceration program. There's funding out there from the Justice Department, but we were going to apply for it this year, but you needed a research partner to do it. And so by us signing the agreement with ODU to be our research partner, we can pursue that initiative next year, but it will have to be a citywide initiative, and everyone needs to buy in. We started our Faiths Behind the Badge initiative. Those are a group of faith leaders from all across the city. They meet once a month with my staff. The purpose of this group is to try and reach individual communities that we wouldn't necessarily have access to, but to get the faith leaders to support us, to share information. We have monthly trainings with them so they can take back to their individual communities. And also to develop a partnership before a critical incident occurs, to get them, to be our spokespersons when needed. But like I said, it's about 20 to 30 that consistently come every month. They come on our walks, they come on our reset like we had today. We started a Young Adult Police Chiefs Commission, which is a group of high school students. We have about 12, 3 from each of the high schools, or 4 from each of the high schools. And we once again meet with them on a monthly basis. We mentor them, try to get them prepared for life after high school, whether it's going to be college, military, or a trade. So we take them to various fairs. We actually were able to turn it into an internship program this summer, where half of the kids were interested in being youth counselors, so they were counselors for our camp. So we paid them for our camp, and that gets me into our police athletic league. We revitalized our police athletic league. Overwhelming participation. We have boxing and basketball and football and cheerleading and dance and poem and flag football, if I didn't say it, but overwhelmingly great initiative. We also had a summer camp, the first of its kind. We had a 7-week summer camp. This is the last week of the camp. We had 62 individuals signed up. Most of the time, 58 to 60 showed up. But we spent 7 weeks, Monday through Thursday, with the kids. You could just see the transformation between the youth and the officers during that 7 weeks. It was just gratifying to see that transformation. It's ages 5 to 13. Virginia Rules Camp gave us a grant, so we teach bullying and gun safety and drugs and just different programs with them every week. But they also go on field trips. They go to swimming lessons once a week as well at the Y, so free swimming lessons. So that has been a great camp. We started our Explorers program that focuses on middle school students. A cadet program is underway. We're just waiting for the announcement to go out. That'll be for individuals 18 to 21 who are interested in becoming Portsmouth police officers. So we'll bring them on the department, train them, give them responsibilities like taking reports on the phone and just training them, getting them prepared for the academy once it starts, trying to increase especially our diversity within the police department, but just to get them out of trouble before they get into trouble and bring them on the department and guide them. We partnered with Parks and Recreation for our Nighthawk basketball. We kind of stole it from Norfolk, but that's okay because they only had theirs in the summer and we kept ours year round. We've had excellent participation, 40 to 50 guys. It was Friday and Saturday night. At first we just had it at Cavalier Manor. That went pretty well until the weather broke this May, and then a population dropped, so we just dropped it to one night. But Mr. Farrell was saying today, that we still get about 30 individuals, and now we're rotating it around the city. So and it's between the hours of 10 p.m. and 1 a.m., so you're trying to get them in that crucial hour that mischief could happen. Of course, you all know about our Coffee with a Cop. We also started a Coloring with a Cop for our preschoolers, which has been a success as well, especially for the preschoolers. They are so excited when we come to the point that some of them have temper tantrums when we leave. So that's been really cute with them. And then, of course, you know about our rapid engagement of support in the event of trauma, which is our reset. And unfortunately, we had to have one today because we had a homicide early yesterday morning.
I have a question. The cadet program,
Yes.
I'm assuming you implemented that in other jurisdictions that you've served.
I did.
What, you have any data as far as the success? It seems like that's a pretty good program in attracting. You have any data on that?
It's mixed. The one my first department, we implemented, it went very well, but we had to have 2 years college. So it was a part-time program where we paid for them to go to school, and then they worked part-time. Half of them made it through, and the other half decided it wasn't for them. And that's kind of the idea, is police work for you. So that's the only one I could actually speak to. Apparently it was here before. Go ahead.
Yeah, we had it here. It was very successful. I know quite a few people. It was called patrol aides back then. And I can think of about 6 people that I worked with that started that program that came on the police department and have since retired. And the only one I can think of that didn't retire from here is because he went on to become a state trooper. It was really successful when we had it.
I remember.
How is that marketed to, is it at the, what level do you recruit at?
Well, we're still waiting on the announcement to come out right now. We've been working with HR. We have everything in place for it to go. So as soon as Ms. Gooden gives me the okay, then we will market it. Like I've already started talking about it in my Chiefs Forum and our faith leaders. And one of the young men that's one of our young adult police commissioners, I was talking to his dad because his dad just became a chaplain, and he was saying how his son wants to be a police officer, and he'll be 18 at the end of the year. So I said, great, we can get him into this program. So they're excited about it. So hopefully, and then if you and other clergy and can put it out to their respective areas, that would be great. So yeah, we will definitely market it.
Yeah.
The program. So geographical policing. We divided the city up into 3 geographical areas in order to create consistency with officer assignments, to foster the familiarity, so everyone can become familiar with each other, the citizens as well as your officers, and hopefully to keep them in a geographical area. Sometimes it's hard because of staffing, or you get called away from another call, but the goal is to stay in your same area so you get to know who lives there, who belongs there, who doesn't, and the citizens will feel more comfortable talking with you. And it builds community goodwill and trust amongst the community organizations. The big change that we made was with our NIOs, your neighborhood impact officers. We changed them to community enhancement officers, but what we did is we restructured the unit. And some are still CEOs, our community enhancement officers, but we divided that unit up into street crimes, homeless outreach team, our PAL, our Safety Town, and our Citizens Academy and Youth, Young Adult Police Commission, and Faith Behind the Badge, to cover, and you'll see, I'm going to show you some crime stats to show you when we made that transition and how it actually impacts us working and having the resources to combat some of the crime issues we were having. So next, here's our map of our district boundaries. They're natural boundaries, so 1 and 2 are divided by 264, and then 2 and 3 being Churchland, is divided by the waterway. So basically all neighborhoods were kept intact. They were just put into different districts. And then crime stats. So violent crime has been pretty consistent, and violent crime would be the bottom layer. Pretty consistent since 2009 with a few fluctuations. That we had our low in 2012, and it's been slowly creeping up, which will also be noted that on the next slide, how it's been creeping up since 2013 nationwide. So it's not just here in Portsmouth, but nationwide crime is slowly creeping back up. And our total crime change from 15 to 16 was an increase of 9.4%. Violent crime increased 7.92% with a 52% reduction in homicides last year. And property crime still went up 9.67%. So the next slide compares Portsmouth to the nationwide. So violent and property crimes have been
As you
like
go through that slide, could you identify the legend, because it's kind of hard to
I'm sorry,
read.
yes. The red is nationwide violent crime. The next yellow is nationwide property crime. And then this orangish color is a computer. Portsmouth violent crime, and then the green, light green, lime green is Portsmouth property crime. So, as I was saying, in 2012, 2013, Portsmouth had the largest spike in violent crime. So right around this time, right here, is our largest spike in violent crime, and with 28%. And then whereas the nationwide, it was still showing a 5% reduction. In 2015 to 2016, nationwide, there was a 5% increase in violent crime, and Portsmouth experienced an 8% increase.
So, I don't know, have you concluded that these are significant differences between the national and what's happening in Portsmouth?
No, that's why I put the national up here to show you the trend when it was coming down. It was a 25 year low, and it looks like that low is over. That we are experiencing a steady increase, and it's been going up both here in Portsmouth and nationwide.
Is that something, I guess, the ODU researchers, they'll be able to let us know whether there was a significant difference between, like when I see 5.3% and 8.47, is that a significant difference?
I don't think it's a significant difference, but they should be able to,
Okay.
right, because they ask for all our crime stats, so they're looking at
Mayor, if I may, and I'll report tomorrow, but I'll tell you now, the Old Dominion team and the Violence and Crime Initiative will be presenting, it will be a total September 25th public work session. And that will be all of the researchers and the data that's coming back.
But yes, they're definitely helping us look at where our trends are.
Okay.
So, department highlights over the past 5 years, I'll talk about a few of them. Of course, you know about our body-worn cameras. We were able to institute them a couple years ago. Thanks to you all, we just were able to purchase the latest and greatest model. They are being distributed now throughout the department. The first set had some flaws as far as where it was placed, and like they were either here or here and then they would fall. This one is like a battery pack. It's just like a square that sits here. You can put it anywhere, and it's flat. So you don't have to worry about the camera tilting and all of that, and it has a larger range of view. We will also have the capability that if your body camera is on, anyone within 30 feet will activate their body-worn camera, because we had issues with officers not activating their body-worn cameras, or forgetting, or because something happened in a second they didn't have time. But now this new technology will activate everyone that's within that 30
It's like a motion detector.
Yes, sir. And you can also get it to activate if your lights come on. So they have different functionalities that will enhance our ability to make sure we capture.
So it looks like a GoPro, I mean, something like that.
It's It's just a square box.
Yeah, like
It's just, I'm not sure what to go for.
Like a life alert?
Yeah, like a life.
Bigger than a light bulb.
Yeah, so, yes, sir.
So is there a particular reason why police officers have to turn on and off the camera and why it doesn't steady stream?
Because it's too much data storage, because it costs us millions of dollars to store the data. And so and plus they're personal. There are issues when you go to the restroom, you're having private conversations that you don't want to capture all of that data. But mainly it's storage. It's a matter of evidence.com charges you per whatever it is to store the data. So it's all about data storage costs more than the actual cameras itself. Other questions? Okay, so we have the body-worn cameras. We're also getting a new CAD system, our computer-aided dispatch, to help our dispatchers and have our record system speak to our dispatch system. That is going to be, it's in the implementation stages, so it should be up and running by the beginning of 2018. We're getting a new public safety radio system to help enhance our communications, especially out in the Churchland area. And last year we applied for $1.2 million in grants, and we were awarded $237,000, which may be affected in years to come because of new stipulations that have been put on by the Department of Justice. But we'll be having a meeting with Mr. Ashby and the city manager, Dr. Patton, to discuss whether we will go forward or not with the new stipulations. And it has to do with immigration enforcement. And then lastly, future challenges that we face, of course, budget uncertainty, but difficulty attracting police officer candidates, especially a diverse group. Lack of trust in the police, and that's nationwide. So the police really the police profession as a whole, we need to rebrand ourselves, change our image. As the IACP president stated at the conference last year, we need to acknowledge the mistakes of the past and move forward on trying to find ways to help our communities, help all communities be included and treated professionally. And then staffing, salary compression, market competition for both sworn and civilian will continue to be a challenge because we can't compete against the federal government or the private sector. So. Any
Questions?
questions?
Yes, sir, Bill.
Chief,
Yes.
I think your report said that we have 13 auxiliary police officers. What are we authorized to have?
I think we're authorized, they're free, so
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. Back in the day, they were authorized 95, but I think they were up to 40-something, but
Would it behoove us to market and try to recruit auxiliary officers since they are free?
Oh, we've been doing that. And we truly do, especially our auxiliary officers themselves. They've sent several over. We had a meeting probably back in January, and we had a group of 15 or 20 that were interested. Unfortunately, everyone couldn't pass the background. Some lost interest because it is very time consuming. Because where we go through a 4-month academy, their academy is like 9 months long because they work full-time jobs. And a lot of people can't commit to that time. But we are diligently recruiting we actually had 4 in the academy, but 1 had to drop out because of medical issues.
Yeah, because I know that figure is, I've seen it a lot higher than 13 in the past. Also, the community enhancement officers. And perception sometimes is a lot, but I hear in the community that a lot of community leaders feel the NIO program was more community-based. In other words, they had more interaction with their NIO officer, and they stayed pretty consistent for the most part in the community. Are there plans? I know you mentioned that due to some sort of shortages, they maybe aren't out there in the community on a consistent basis?
Well, our community enhancement officers, there are 2 per district, whereas before, everyone pretty much had their own
Correct.
NIO. Unfortunately, we don't have the luxury to have the officers, that many officers in each of the neighborhoods, because we have to fill patrol, and crime needs to be addressed. I mean, it's nice to have, you know, and they do have their personal contact, because what I explained to the citizens is now you have a lieutenant who is their contact for each of the district, and they have their group of officers. But then they have their patrol officers who should be consistent in that neighborhood. And the individuals that you all have brought to our attention, like you said, a lot of it is perception. We have met with those individuals and we show them, because they are complaining about crime, and we show them the crime stats. And it shows how crime has decreased in that area, although they're not seeing their officer as often as they would have liked. But what I was going to pass out, did they get a copy of?
It's in their packet.
Okay.
I can
So-
pull it up if you want.
Yeah, could you pull that one up, please? So if you look at, you have the one she's going to pull up, but you also, I'm going to show you this from last year. If you can turn it over on the back.
They have it in their box.
That's our crime year-to-date from last year. So from January through February. And the red is a negative. It was
on
going, right, but that's different. So I'm talking about this one first. So if you see, like if you look at violent crimes, from January or February to August, all our violent crime was in the red. In September is when we changed the NIOs. Okay, when we impacted our street crimes unit and our homeless outreach, we had to address the crime. And as you can see, September, October, and November, it steadily declined for violent crimes. We lost December. That was huge because of Christmas and the robberies. So the robbery set us back. So otherwise, we were on track to make those changes. And also, if you look at property crime, starting in September, well, it was still up in September, but October, although we were in the red, it declined significantly from the beginning of the year because we had the resources to focus on those areas where the crimes were occurring. Whereas in before, if you had your NIOs were just in a particular neighborhood, whereas you had the street crimes unit, and if your area is the area that's having all the burglaries, those are the resources I have to put to try and combat that issue and try and look at what transpired the year before and then move it forward. So if I had 10 burglaries here last year, my goal as the lieutenant is to come up with strategies so I have less burglaries in this area. So it's more focus generated. And then if you look at this year's report to date, same thing is happening. Like I said, if you started, and we started in September when we changed the NIOs, and look at the violent crime this year has been consistently below what we did last year because we have those resources. We have lieutenants specifically assigned to the areas to focus on what happened last year, what are your goals, what do you need? Do you need traffic? Do you need mounted patrol? Do you need street crimes? So that is their goal, to report out to me once a month on what happened last month, what happened this month, where are we going, and where do you need your resources? So what we explain to the citizens is we're here if you need it, but where they're looking at crime maybe going up in their neighborhood, and most of them had not gone up because the last set of group mails, they thought they had a crime spree on burglaries. They had 5 burglaries in February and 5 in March. They only had 1 in July. And once we pointed that out to them, they said, oh. So the perception's there, but the crime is going down. And like right now, violent crime, we're down to date 9% this year. Whereas you see last year's numbers, we were up 8%. Property crime has been a little more challenging, but it fluctuates. But they're not as high as they used to be, because if you look, 1%, 2%. So, you know, we are focusing our efforts on where it's needed. And then if you go, our homicides are, we need to fight that battle. I mean, unfortunately, some of it's uncontrollable, most of it's uncontrollable, but because we don't have gangs in the street. A lot of them have been domestic related. 3 we have not solved yet, but the rest have all been solved, and or arrests have been made, as well as the others have been known accomplices, whether it's drug related or whatever. So you're not having gang issues in the street with our homicides. It's mainly accomplices. Somebody owed them money, or there's a bad drug deal, stuff like that. So, so our robberies, look at our robberies. I mean, this is year to date on where we are. We're down 16% on our robberies. So that's why we had to, and our aggravated assaults, we're down 5. You know, focus on the shootings, because although a particular neighborhood would like their individual officer, if the city's not safe, that's going to hurt our economy across the board. So that's why we had to utilize our resources to the best of our ability, as much as we could possibly do. And yes, if we get more, we would certainly like to put more NIO officers, CEOs, but they still have them. They just don't have the abundance they used to have.
All right, Elizabeth. I'm glad to see this, Chief, because this is really helpful. What do you say to the Susie citizen who says, you know, why is my police officer out there coloring with children when there's a robbery every night and a shooting in one of the 7 cities every night? You know, why are they coloring? Why aren't they keeping my neighborhood safe?
Well, our Coloring with a Cop is once a month, 1 hour a day. So it doesn't have that big of an impact. But we have to start with the kids, because they're our future. And we have to get them involved with the police department and change our image starting at that early age. Because if you recall, when we were younger, it was, I'm going to call the police on you. You're being bad. So we're trying to change that image. And like I said, those are preschoolers. It's once a month, and it's only our NIOs, our CEOs that are out doing it. So, you know.
At a time when there's no community meeting to go to anyway.
It's at 10 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock in the morning. So it's not taken away from anything in the afternoon. I'm not pulling patrol officers off the street. It's usually our community enhancement team.
Can I have one more question? You're authorized at 266, and where are you today?
Well, what happened was, we are today, we're 40 down. And I say 40 because prior to this budget cycle, we were told we were authorized 256 and 10 overhires, or they were frozen positions. This budget cycle clearly shows we have 266. So that raised our number by 10 anyway. So if you include all 266, we're 40 down. We had, when I came on, we were, if you include the extra 10, you're actually 27 down. But we were 17 down because we were going by 256. We have lost several officers, but in the past we were able to keep up with that by filling a recruitment class. Like last year, at the end of the year, we hired 13, and that pretty much offset the officers we lost at the time. Unfortunately, what happened this year was the fact we didn't have the Civil Service Commission for 6 months, and we weren't able to get anyone in the class. I had 3 already pre-hired, so I was able to get to 3, but the others that were ready to go, I didn't have a Civil Service Commission, so I couldn't get authorization to hire them. So the class started, and I only have 3 in the academy. And since the budget, I've lost 7 officers, and that could have been the 7 I had in the academy. So that's where we started losing the battle due to time constraints and trying to get people in the door. Our next academy is in October, so we're working now trying to catch back up. So it's a...
You have some interviews tomorrow?
Yes. We just had a test a couple weeks ago, so we have interviews going on right now, trying to get them in the door. So we still have applicants coming. It's just a matter of, we lost that
Timing.
time. And some of them have declined because now they've gone to other departments, so.
Out of that number, how many are deployable?
We have 220, I believe, deployable when I saw the number last. Yeah, because, 220 were deployable. I have 15 in training. So. Or maybe 2 or 6 deployable. I'll get back to you on that number. Other questions?
Can we get the data on the demographics of the police force by race and gender? When you talk about the academy class, it takes about how long to go through that academy?
It's about 4 months through the academy, and then depending on the individual, another 3 or 4 months to do field training to get them through.
Okay.
I do have some demographics not up to date, and these are according to our records. Ms. Gooden would have official records.
Yeah, we get it.
We'll get it to you.
Okay, we'll get it from, okay.
And I'm asking also because I know previously it was mentioned to council that the Civil Service Commission served as a major barrier to the diversity initiative. The Civil Service Commission is still there. So I'll be interested in, are there any strategies in place to address a plan to address diversifying the force? I know that's a national issue, and so I still haven't seen any plan that Portsmouth has in place. Particularly, I know that civil service piece at one time was mentioned as a major hurdle, and since that's there, what are we doing?
Right. As far as the civil service, as you may know, we have a new Civil Service Commission, so we're optimistic that we'll work with them. But I can tell you, our last recruit class at the end of last year, we hired 13, more than half were minorities. So it worked well. Last year, we were able to get some good applicants in the door, and they're in our field training program right now. So. Like I said, we have a new Civil Service Commission, and so we're optimistic moving forward.
Okay.
But I also have a new background investigator, a recruiter, because unfortunately one of my recruiters, my only recruiter, went to another position, so he was hired by someone else. So now I have a new recruiter, and so we're working with him on developing his plan of action.
And the statement you had about lacking trust, that issue nationwide, has there been any response from Portsmouth to the statement that President Trump made last week as far as being tough on persons who are arrested? Was there any communication to our police division addressing that comment?
No, it was not. I was not here. I was in Atlanta at the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executive Conference, and that's all we talked about all week. So this is my first day back. I actually meant to bring it up in my staff meeting this morning, but I lost sight and didn't bring it up. Just trying to get some feedback on any comments. But my position is everyone will be treated fairly if you want to work here.
And I think that statement needs to come from city manager, council director, city manager, the city manager to issue that if that's something we can vote on tomorrow, because that statement just further opens the gap of distrust. And so I think I think our silence on it would be just as detrimental.
And that's what they encouraged when
I think
actually
specifically he was talking about the MS-13 people. That's what that meeting
I
was
don't care
about.
who he was talking about. That to make a statement like that, that seriously erodes distrust and it discredits humanity.
I don't think we need to get into national politics.
Well, we discussed the federal legislation. That's about as national as you can get.
I don't think we need to get into it.
Nate?
Just got a couple questions. One question first is reference to, do we know how many outstanding warrants that we have on file within the city?
No, sir.
Because that's something I'd be interested in, because with the crimes, a lot of times these offenders are repeat offenders. So I think, I know we had a fugitive apprehension team, but I think we really need to go after a lot of these outstanding warrants, because I don't know the number, but I would expect we have a lot. So that's something that we need to pull these people off the street, because that in and of itself could possibly prevent other crimes. So I would like to know what our outstanding, broke down just between misdemeanors and felonies. Just how many people that we have that have already met the probable cause criteria, warrant has been issued for their arrest, that we need to bring them in and get them in the court system. So I would like to get a response on those two numbers. And the only other thing I had, since, brought up about hiring in civil service, is I've already addressed this to the city manager. Questions have been proposed that I was told that you have 3 vacant promotion positions, 2 sergeants and 1 lieutenant. And at this time, I was advised that a test will be forthcoming. But as it stands now, you have an active list to make promotions, and these just aren't happening. So I was curious as to why this was not happening.
I think that's a personnel, that's
like-
personnel.
All right, I hear you, but I'm going to ask the city manager to respond. You have your hand up.
Yes, I was going to let Mrs. Gooden state what the statute says as it relates to the list.
Would you come to the lectern, please?
Yes. And that's the statute that is a part of our civil service, both chiefs and police and fire.
I'm sorry, say the question again.
Well,
The statement, the question was, there's a list.
Correct.
And that list, why is not the chief hiring? And you have advised, both you and Mr.
Not uncommon.
Well, to follow up on that question, is my understanding is in the civil service rules, there is a thing in there that says that if the chief is not going to promote, it needs to be provided in writing to that commission as to why.
I will double check that, sir. I think what the rules say, it speaks to if there is a change to the standards or some other point of fitness, that the chiefs have to provide something to the Civil Service Commission, but we will double check.
Because I don't know who these people are, don't want to know the names, because that's not the issue. But, the fact is, if you have 3 promotion positions, then if they're promoted, that opens up 3 more that we can offer to hire to bring more people in to increase this complement.
It's a point of order. Aren't we dealing in personnel which is not our level? Careful with this discussion.
I'm following the discussion very carefully, and we haven't crossed the line yet, and I think it would be appropriate for the city manager to just give us a report on this matter.
Sure.
Okay.
And with what it states.
Councilman Moody, thank you. You may sit down.
A couple things. Chief, the weighing of trucks, is the police department still tasked with that responsibility? Checking overweight
Oh, yes, sir.
trucks?
Yes.
Because I notice a lot of our roads are getting damaged, and I know truck traffic is increasing. How many citations have we issued for overweight? Do we know that?
We have not issued any. We have been checking. Our traffic unit goes out, I believe, once a week or a couple times a week, because this issue was a big issue during the budget process.
Right.
And we specifically detailed officers. Even the sheriff's department came and picked up one of the weight trucks, and we haven't been able. They weren't overweight. I mean, we've been stopping them, and we've been tracking them, and they may be cited for something else, but the trucks that we were stopped, and they purposely went out to enforce this.
How many do we
law.
stop in a given
I can
month?
get you the number.
I'd like to
don't
see the
have-
number.
I shall get that. Truck stop.
Also, my comment on the national political thing, I don't think we need to comment to the president, and I think you've probably already done this, that all officers are trained not to jam somebody's head in the side of the car. So that, if we want to put a reminder out for that, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
But I don't think we need to.
Part of your mission statement.
I think
Treat
that-
everybody with
I
respect.
think that comment was rebuked on a national basis beyond the city council realm.
Okay. Thank you.
There was just one.
Oh, you have another?
No, she's fine. She's finished with hers, but I have one thing that I sent out to you all yesterday about the 9th homicide. The chief informed me this morning that it's actually the 10th. And in those 10, 2 of those are domestic disputes that caused the death of someone within a family.
And one's claiming self-defense.
Right. Okay.
Chief, there's a perception that police prevent crime. When you talk about domestic violence, you can't have a police officer in someone's house.
No, you cannot.
And so the comment about moving police from coloring to being in community, that's a misnomer in and of itself, because a police car can be parked right in the community.
Amen.
And a crime still be committed, because they can't prevent crime. They can deter it. And so I just want to make sure, we're fair on that, because a lot of times, I think out of emotion, we start talking about what needs to be done. When it's put to the test of logic, it doesn't make sense. And so just want to make sure, because I've heard that too about some of the initiatives that you put in place to try to build trust, and why are we doing this when they should be over in this arena, which even if they were in that arena, that doesn't guarantee that will prevent crime.
And
Or stop crime from
That's
happening.
why I asked her the question.
And sir, and we try to express that or stress that with our citizens. What we need is them. They are our eyes and ears. We need them to call when there are suspicious individuals in their neighborhood for us to respond. Because even if we were there, we don't know who belongs and who doesn't. Only you know who is suspicious in your neighborhood. So I totally agree with that statement. So thank you.
Okay.
How long you been here now, Chief?
A year and 5 months.
A year and 5 months, okay. Well, I'm just looking at the numbers, and they are improving. So whatever you're doing, it's having a positive effect, and it's working. And just from the community at large that I hear from, they are very pleased with your efforts and what you're doing, and coming into the community and trying to be a part of the community. So I'll just say hats off to you. Keep doing what you're doing. Just to piggyback on what Dr. Whitaker said, when the president speaks, everybody listens. So we do have to be cognizant. What they do, whether we should or not, and we know it's always not something we want to hear. So we need to make sure that that's step enforcement, that we understand that we're treating everybody fairly. And however we communicate that, we need to make sure it's communicated to our citizens and for our police officers. Okay.
Dr. Patton?
Yes, sir.
This is to both of you. Thank you for the leadership of the police department, and thank you. Please take to your department our sincere gratitude for what they're doing.
Yeah, it's working. Keep it up.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief. And now, members of the council, we'll have Mr. Daniel Jones to come forward, please, with the strategic fiber master plan as the bottom falls out outside. We kept saying it's not coming. Dr. Whitaker, did you see? Yeah, and I talked to him today.
Well, as this warms back up, we did apply the patch, and this is presentation version 2.0. Okay. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council. As Dr. Patton recently highlighted, we will be providing a brief, high-level overview of our strategic fiber master plan. The agenda for this presentation will cover what exactly is a fiber optic network, the master plan importance, the municipal fiber network, the financial models, and the regional connectivity. So what exactly is a fiber optic network? That refers to a medium and the technology associated with the transmission of information as light pulses along a glass or a plastic strand. It references a design of strands or pairs for information transmission. The network topology consists of a linear or a ring design. The high capacity of information transmission over an increased distance, and the common transmission method of internet and mobile service providers. So the importance of the fiber master plan. It is multifaceted, and it provides the vital governance as to the municipal fiber assets. It outlines a stance for the municipal asset and shifting the thought of the paradigm from a fiber or internet connection being just a commodity, for it being a prerequisite, as connectivity is a must in today's technological age. The deployment must be done as a ring topology, as it encompasses all the city resources, reducing expense of future connections to the core backbone. It standardized the specification of all fiber assets, ensuring resiliency and capacity for the long-range technology future. When we began to draft this master plan in October of 2016, we interviewed all the internal departments, regional municipal partners, including Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Chesapeake, Suffolk, educational partners, TCC and the public schools, transportation, HRT, PRHA, to determine all the goals and possibilities of this plan. And as a frame of reference, this is what you would consider a ring topology deployment, meaning each one of these computers or workstations would represent a municipal facility. So once they are connected to the backbone or to the ring, then that gives them multiple points of resiliency. So if it was a contractor, a construction company cut the fiber, there would still be one valid link to have them connected rather than just a point-to-point strand. So our municipal fiber network, it would create a reduction in recurring operating expenses. It would allow for increased connectivity bandwidth. It would improve our public safety efficiencies. And by that, the entire city would have a low latency, critical information transmission of life-saving decisions. So as the public safety have the MDT consoles, they're now transmitting across cellular. They could be transmitting across our fiber to have a quicker response on what they're researching. The community stakeholders connectivity. This would foster greater service delivery to our citizenry. The Wi-Fi or public Wi-Fi deployment would be an addition throughout the city for our mobile applications, as well as an avenue for the unserved and underserved populations. Now, the IoT, or as we refer it as to the Internet of Things, some examples would be traffic analytics, automated vehicles, flood monitoring sensors, environmental sensors, public safety shot spotter. The imagination of what you could use the IoT for is up to you. The economic development benefits would be our middle mile leasing strategies, dark fiber for incoming enterprises, biomed, financial institution, and things of that sort. The technology backbone across all methods of communication would refer to the transportation across the fiber infrastructure. And here is the financial models that we come up with. The recurring contract cost, and this is excluding the E-rate subsidy. Municipal partners' annual cost for internet service is $390,284. The public schools, once again excluding E-rate, which is subsidized by federal government of anywhere from 85 to 90%, is $608,964. The public libraries, once again, is also subsidized by the federal government of $28,836. So if the city no longer had the E-rate subsidy, the total contract for internet for the city would be $1,028,084.
So what is it?
Currently, it's close between the schools, libraries, and municipal partners, close to about $500,000. Because that $608,000 for the schools, the 85 to 90% would come off of that. So they're paying roughly $80,000, $90,000, give or take. So the 20-year network cost, if we do nothing to keep the status quo, it would cost us $22.6 million. And that's if we never increase the bandwidth, we never change any specifications, we completely depend on the carrier. And with today's technological, of everything shifting more to the cloud and being on the mobile, I don't see that as a feasible avenue. If we ask an ISP to provide the same bandwidth capacity as outlined in our fiber master plan, it would cost us close to $40 million over 20 years. If we construct this municipal network, over the 5 years, it's $8.3 million to $18.5, and that would determine the difference of if we were able to recapture any of the E-rate subsidies coming back into the city. The provider connection bandwidth from a municipal network to a data center connection at 1 gigabyte per second is roughly $1,500 a month. Right now, the provider lease network, meaning that's an ISP, charges for the same connection $6,800 a month. And currently, right now, the city, meaning municipal departments, for 200 meg, a fifth of that connection, is paying $3,260 a month.
So instead of 3,200, you can drop it to 1,500.
And get 5 times as much speed.
And okay, bandwidth.
So now with the regional connectivity. The regional connectivity, meaning connecting our city with Hampton Roads, is we've had several conversations with the CIOs of our sister cities. It would bring public safety interoperability, meaning regional disaster response, regional 911 centers, or even possibly a Hampton Roads FirstNet as the government is laying out now. Increased information sharing throughout the multiple jurisdictions. Regional economic development would be the allurement of high bandwidth enterprises, as I stated before, your biomeds, financial institutions, research firms, technology startups, and even the East Coast technology labs. The educational connectivity of all university and community colleges with virtual classes, research connectivity across multiple states to other research triangles in the North Carolina region. And the workforce, increasing high-paying jobs as well as providing connection for the underserved and unserved populations. And as we know now, if you go to apply for a job at anywhere, they direct you to a website. So that portion of the population that has no internet connectivity, they're just stuck in a revolving circle. At this time, if you have any questions.
Questions? Dr. Whitaker?
The public safety interoperability,
Yes.
Is that purely just talking about connectivity networks? That doesn't relate to anything when the chief was just speaking about the storage of data. Does that impact this area?
Well, that would speak to the regional interoperability of just about anything. If we chose at that point, as a region, as a municipality, we could host that data, we could store that data. The options are limitless, really.
So the cost figure that dealing with now, that would be significantly reduced under this type of.
There is a possibility, absolutely. It all depends on how we look at that, the security of what those videos are being uploaded, the access levels that they're determined. There's a lot of variables with that.
And as far as the Wi-Fi capabilities, the whole issue of turning on and off body cameras, would that be something that that type of technology could be used so that that's no longer manual operation?
Well, what, if I'm not mistaken, what the chief was referring to, that signal that's sent when you have officers in a close proximity, it sends a Bluetooth or RF signal.
No, I'm speaking of if the officers are not in just that individual officer who has to turn on and off
Right.
the camera.
Yeah, I mean, if there's data access infrastructure, Wi-Fi connection points, then they could be uploaded as on the move rather than being stored. But what you also have to look at, these are running off an internal battery. So no matter how much we store on the camera, it's only got so much so much battery life. And as we begin, these cameras start to shoot your high resolution 4K type images. Higher resolution, this requires more battery life. So, and as they continue to roll out, of course, with the public safety radios, higher capacity batteries should go hand in hand.
No questions. Now, Dr. Patton, this is a status report, correct?
Yes.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, I just wanted to report back on a sort of related matter. The council had raised a question. You asked a couple of weeks back with regard to the telecommunication utilities, how we received our taxes with regard to those matters. Those matters are taxed by the State Corporation Commission at our, which takes account for our real estate and our personal property in the city that's related to any type of utility. The State Corporation Commission assesses the tax and then reports it back to the city. So I can provide you, they keep a running list of the utilities, the telecommunication utilities that they monitor, and they report back our taxes through that particular process. So it's not collected here, it's collected at state level and sent back to the cities.
And that's their tax rate? That's not a municipal?
Well, they use our real estate tax rate for our local community. So if your infrastructure is here, you will be taxed for what infrastructure you have in the city of Portsmouth at its real estate rate. So it may be different in Norfolk or wherever, but they capture the information and then collect it and report it back.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. We will have our last presentation for the evening, the Neighborhood Incentive Matching Grant.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the City Council. I'm going to give an overview presentation of the Neighborhood Incentive Matching Grant Program. In the overview, I will briefly go over the program's historical context, eligibility requirements, program guidelines, and program funding categories and instructions. During the period 2007 through 2009, the city had created the Neighborhood Matching Funds Program. And within the current budget, FY 2018, City Council approved $50,000 for the Neighborhood Incentive Matching Grant Program. The program is designed to encourage residents to take a more active role in the beautification of the city and also to provide neighborhood organizations with an opportunity to fund neighborhood enhancement projects. The program is aligned with support of City Council's 4 big things, specifically number 4, the initiative to support image enhancement. Who's eligible to participate in the program? The Civic League Civic Leagues registered with the city clerk's office, neighborhood watch organizations registered with the police department, and neighborhood groups supported or endorsed by the respective civic league. Additionally, participants can only receive funding from one city source. It is a matching grant program. Grant awards will range from $500 up to a maximum of $5,000. There is a 25% match for each grant award, which can consist of a cash match or an in-kind contribution match. Again, funding from other city sources cannot be counted towards the match requirement. This means CBG, support to civic and cultural organizations. Grant awarded projects will have documentation requirements, award agreement, receipts, invoices, progress reports. Program categories. There are 3 funding categories. Beautification, these are projects enhancing the aesthetic quality of a neighborhood. Neighborhood improvement, these are projects that improve neighborhood infrastructure. And then finally, special community initiatives. These encompass projects impacting the human element of a neighborhood. And then projects must comply with all applicable city codes and ordinances. Instructions. There is an annual application process, 1 application per neighborhood. Projects must be endorsed by and have neighborhood and civic league support. And then the program timeline starts this month, August through September 22nd, 2017 is the program announcements and advertising. September 25th through October 23rd, 2017, the application process opens. October through November 10th, 2017, selection committee reviews and notice of awards go out. And then November 2017 through May 31st, 2018, project work commences. And then June 2018, to coincide with the ending of the fiscal year, projects are completed and closed out. This concludes my presentation. Are there any questions?
Questions? Dr. Wood?
You said one under your last slide, instructions, where it says projects must be endorsed by and have neighborhood or civic league support. What is considered neighborhood support? Because I know previously it mentioned civic league support.
Well, the one category, the special community initiative has that human element. So there's various groups that we would look at within that. For example, there's a couple of neighborhoods coming up with centennial anniversaries. So they would be funded under that category. They would go get their neighborhood organization is probably a committee, a subcommittee of the Civic League. They would come forward, produce or apply for a project funding under that category. So it's neighborhoods other than, it's neighborhood groups other than the formal official civic leagues.
Okay.
That's what Bill.
How many communities have we had to take advantage of the application process?
We're just starting the announcement and advertisement of the program. But I do know that there are 2, this program has been somewhat casually advertised, and I do know that there are 2 neighborhoods. Craddock is coming up on their centennial anniversary, and Truxton, which is next year. And we've advised them that that's a great opportunity for them to apply for project funding under this grant.
And how will we evaluate the effectiveness?
Well, the selection committee uses 6 selecting criteria, each valued at 20%. And then that will score what projects get awards, the scores coming out of that. We're requiring within the program guidance to have progress reports done And plus, they have to submit documentation. So that rigid documentation aspect of the program is how we're going to keep the project on track. They have about up to 6 months to complete the program. But all projects have to be done by the end of May, so we can close out the fiscal year.
Going forward, I would like to see us make it more conducive. I think the 25% matching grant for people who are going to actually, submit through the grant process and actually do what they say they're going to do and what the money they're going to get. I think 25% is pretty steep for our own community. I mean, this is to help us help ourselves through the communities, and especially in the area of beautification. Our whole city needs a good dose of beautification as you ride around the city. And I think a program like this can certainly be a catalyst to make that happen. But I would like to see us enhance it and maybe revisit the matching part of it, and maybe even up the available grant money, as long as we can evaluate the compliance and make sure the money's meeting the road. If my colleagues agree, I think it can be a great tool.
I think Dr. Patton wants to respond.
Mayor and members of council, as a result of the discussions that you all had during your retreat in February, your instructions were for us to look at the program as it existed back in 07 to 09 and let this 18 be almost a project, not a project, but a pilot and opportunity, and the amount of which we recommended in the budget and we discussed during the budget process was 50. In addition, we had the matching amount of 25% in the 2017-18, but 90% or more of the projects that came forward were in-kind matches. For example, I remember I was a deputy city manager when I initiated this program, and I think it was under, I'm almost sure it was under Mr. Oliver, that, for example, a beautification project in a community, they wanted to put a sprinkler system in the front of where the entrance and the flowers are. Well, men in the community who live there that worked in landscaping or putting in those kinds of systems, that was the in-kind match. We knew how many hours, they documented that, so they didn't put up any money. And so while we have a match, we probably may have had 2 in the course of that to actually match some finances. Most were in-kind, even to the humanistic piece of parents who are participating and helping and chaperoning, and that. It could be a dance group or the band, or those kinds of things, of them actually giving their time. So
and that's fine.
And that was that's the kind of
Long Point was I think the community that took advantage.
Yes, I remember. Yes, so
yeah.
we have that in mind, and I would ask. We haven't done anything. We've got the schedule here, August through September, which will be getting ready, Mr. Pace, to begin to advertise it broadly, have it on our website, and we know that there will not be a whole lot dispersed. We can see what the response is and then come back in the 2019 budget to make a recommendation based on what our findings are now.
I'm glad we have it back. It's a good program.
But I want to try to fix it till you come back and say it's broke.
Yes,
You
yes.
haven't done that yet?
Yeah, no, sir.
Okay.
All right, everybody satisfied with that?
Great.
Okay.
Mayor-
One last thing. Madam Clerk, you received a request from an applicant that's on the agenda tomorrow night, the tower, to postpone it to when?
I believe it was October the 10th. Is it the 8th?
Okay.
That first meeting in October.
All right, let's discuss what we're going to do. We continued the public hearing to tomorrow night. I have no problem, personally, my position, to continue it to October. If we do that, we'll open the public hearing, and then continue the public hearing, can we put the advertisement requirement on the applicant? People will forget October.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council, I will check with Mr. Baldwin to confirm, because we are rolling this over again in the summer months, I will pose that question and we'll reach out to the applicant and see if there's any issue about that before we reconvene tomorrow.
Can we discuss whether we just go and vote it up or down?
Well, that's an option.
Because this went to Planning Commission, which when they were advised at that time to go to talk to the community. So now communities take the summers off for the communities, so we're going to inconvenience them. I think they had the opportunity to do that, and we even had people come to the community to the meeting and say they didn't talk to them. They had the opportunity to walk out the door and talk to them right then. So I'm ready to vote on it. They can come and say their piece. It's been well advertised, so the community can come and say their piece, and we can move on.
All right. What's your pleasure?
I could vote on it tomorrow night.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I feel like we gave them the opportunity. We continued it for them, and now they're asking for it again, and I think that creates issues, like the city attorney's talking about advertising and everything else. So, I mean, we did this for them, so I think we can go forward with it.
Did the city attorney say you wanted to come back tomorrow with something?
No. I said I can look into that issue and have a response for you all tomorrow, but that's you all's choice. That doesn't
Is it
dictate.
any legal exposure?
No, the matter is up and it's on the table, so it's your prerogative.
Do it.
I say we take a vote
Yeah.
tomorrow night.
I thought the applicant asked to meet with the Civic League. That's what I thought I saw.
That's what
in
I
the email.
understand. Is that the understanding?
That's correct.
I mean, I know.
And that's the only reason I would support the
Yeah, I don't see a rush.
And I think it's that time to do that.
Pardon me?
I think it's an opportunity to do it already. From the time it got the Planning Commissioner here, I think there's plenty. My personal opinion, there's plenty of time to meet with
Been
Yeah.
4 months, 6 months?
at least what, 4 months.
Generally, it's yes, about 60 days, 30, 60 days before it gets to you.
I doubt if your decision's going to change between now and October, so I would just say give them the opportunity to meet, and at least we said we did, and it doesn't put us at a disadvantage.
Flip side, if it's not going to change between now and October, why put it off?
Just to accommodate the citizen, that's all.
I say vote.
I want to vote on it tomorrow.
I'm with Dr. Whitaker, but it looks like we got a majority. All right, thank you. All right, this concludes our work session. We're adjourned, and we will convene tomorrow.